Hi, everybody. Welcome to another English class here on verbling.com. My name is Lisa, and I am from the United States. I live in the state of Washington. I am one of the many English teachers that we have here on verbling.com. And in this hour, we're going to be having a reading class. I put the two links in the verbling chat. So the first link is to go to the document where we're actually going to read the article, and the second link is to the website where the article is. So you can click on both of them or just the document one. But if you want to join, you can join now. If you have a reservation, of course, you can use your reservation now. And if you don't have a reservation but you want to join this class, you want to come in and participate and read, then you do have to be a Verbling member, and then you can join us. So if you're not yet a Verbling member, then you can join Verbling, or you can try it out. You can do a 7-day trial. It's free if you want to do a 7-day trial, and that way that gives you time to check out the classes, take classes, and see if you like it, see if you're going to use the service. You get to take classes pretty much all day, every day, all night. We have classes going 24/7, and they're really great. So come on in and we can get started. Wow, okay, people are coming in all at once. Good, guys. Okay, come on in, and you can go ahead and open the document, and we will get started. Hi, everybody. Hi, Anatoly. How are you?
Hello, I'm fine, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing great, thanks. Okay, awesome. And Fernando, how are you?
Fine, teacher, thank you.
Okay, welcome. And Greg, you're back.
Thank you.
Greg,
Yes,
so
I'm still here.
good, you're still here. Yeah. So now you have to think about a system that can help you make $25,000 a month on a website.
That would be nice.
Yeah, awesome. That would be great. Yeah.
But it's like a float right now, because you see all the time. It doesn't matter what you do during the week. You click the button, you see advertisement, you can earn money. All you have to do, you just have to listen to me, or maybe more, or maybe you see two people and they try to shout at you, "Don't close this video! Don't close this video!"
Don't close it. Wait. Yeah, for sure. Okay. All right. Well, a lot of people are making money on the internet still, so it's not over yet. All right. Luis, how are you doing, Luis?
I'm fine, thank you. Thank you for asking.
Okay. Wonderful. And Lucas, you missed the last class. Lucas, that was a good one for you.
Hello, Lisa. Okay.
Hi, how are you?
I have to check this lesson.
Yeah, you'll have to check it. I'll give you the link to the video where the guy is talking about his website, and he made $25,000 last month. It's a teaching piano. That's the website. It's teaching piano. So you never know what people are going to, how they're going to make money. Lots of ideas out there. Okay, and Angelica, hi. How are you?
Hi.
Welcome. And Adrian, how are you?
Hi, Lisa. I'm fine. And you?
Good, good. I'm good. Thanks. Just checking with everybody, making sure your microphones are working. So let's go ahead and get started, because this is kind of a longer article. It's a little bit, I'm going to say, informal. Okay, so just I put it in the description of the class. There are some cuss words. I kind of edited a little bit, but it's very slangy kind of writing, and it's from this website called Cracked. And so Cracked has a lot of different connotations, but Cracked also means when you crack open something and you tell the truth about things. So here's the article called 5 Famous Inventors, and then in parentheses, who stole their big idea. All right, so it's by this guy, Daniel O'Brien, and it's actually not very recent. It's from 2008, but it's been seen by a lot of people, read by a lot of people. And the idea is that, in science, a lot of times people steal other people's ideas. And so here is an article that's basically telling us You know, these are 5 guys that are very famous that you learn about when you go to school, but in fact, they didn't discover the things that they're known to have discovered. So we're going to read about this. Because it's longer, I'm not going to read out loud. So you guys can do well reading, and I usually read out loud if it's shorter. That way you also have listening and you get to hear me. But it's okay if you guys just read out loud. I will correct some pronunciation perhaps, and of course I will go over vocabulary words and stuff. So let's just get started. And let's see, Wilmer's joining us. Hi, Wilmer. Welcome. Adrian, why don't we go ahead and start with you today, and everybody will have a couple paragraphs at a time. Don't worry about saying a cuss word. Let me just warn you. There are a couple of cuss words. Asshole's not bad. That's not too bad. But there are some F words in here, and I changed them. So this one was the F word. I changed it to freaking, and I also just kind of bleeped out. So on this one, instead of saying the word, you can just say mother effing. So since this is being recorded and people are watching, and we're all adults here, but that's okay. But anyways, just know that's what should be there, the F-U-C-K. But mother effing is how you can read it, okay? Just so you know. Okay, here we go. Adrian, you can read those first 2.
Famous inventor who stole their big idea. It has become clear that it's up to the cracked stuff to eradicate America. See, we skipped through high school, so we were lucky. We avoided the years and years of brainwashing that accompanies a standard education. To those of you unfortunate enough to have been subjected to a lifetime in the public school system, we've got some bad news for you that you probably won't find in your textbooks. Every brilliant inventor you ever loved in a huge household.
Every brilliant inventor you've ever loved is a huge thieving asshole. Okay. All right. So what are they talking about here? Let's see. All right. So this is a very, like I said, informal way of writing, and so you have to consider that when you're reading the tone of the article. So this is very informal, and so it has jokes, it has sarcasm, it has cuss words, things like that. Okay. So he's saying, see. We slept through high school. So to sleep through high school means we were not paying attention to our teachers. So you go through high school, and if you sleep through it, you don't pay attention. So he's making a joke there. So he's saying we were lucky. We didn't have to listen to all of what they were telling us, so we avoided. We didn't have to be subjected to. We didn't have to listen to the years and years of brainwashing. Brainwashing is the word you use when you talk about somebody's trying to convince you of something. So sometimes you talk about governments brainwashing their population, something like that. Teachers brainwashing students. So this is kind of sarcastic, but at the same time somewhat true. So the brainwashing that accompanies, that goes along with a standard education, a standard public education here in the United States. So when you go to school, you get this standard education, and he's saying it's like brainwashing. But he's saying to those of you, so the readers, who were unfortunate, so you were not lucky enough to be sleeping through high school, so you were subjected to, so you had to listen to a lifetime of stuff in the public school system. So you were subjected to, which means teachers told you things throughout your school. He says, we've got some bad news for you. Bad news, that's funny and sarcastic here. It's a joke that you probably won't find in your textbooks. Textbooks are the books that you get at school. That's how students learn, especially in the past. Now, of course, we have the internet and tablets and things like this, but before, all you could learn from were textbooks that your teachers gave you. All right, so here's the bad news. every brilliant meaning intelligent, smart, amazing inventor that you've ever loved is a huge, so big, thieving, like a thief, stealing, asshole. Asshole meaning like a jerk, an idiot, not a nice person. Okay, so number 5. So we're going to talk about 5 of them. Galileo Galilei. All right, number 5, Anatoly.
Okay. Galileo Galilei, or Galgal, as he is more commonly known, was an Italian astronomer,
Physicist.
physicist, and mathematician. If you asked the average high schooler that Galileo's lasting contribution to science was, they would most likely reply the telescope before going off to listen to their Ariana records and play with their Digimon.
Yeah.
Is that what high schoolers do these days? We don't even know anymore. Well, put down the digital monster, high schooler, because we are about to blow your mind. Galgal did not invent the telescope. Also, Rihanna sucks.
Yeah. Okay, so again, very funny kind of writing. So basically, a lot of people think, yes, he was an astronomer studying the stars, a physicist, somebody who studies physics, and a mathematician, so a person who studies math. And the average high schooler, so just your everyday, teenager who goes to high school right now, they're going to think that the lasting contribution, so the thing that Galileo contributed to science that we all remember, that's why it's lasting, it lasts for a very long time, they would reply, or they will say, and they will answer you, oh, the telescope, that's what he did. Okay, let me see, we got somebody breathing into the mic. You guys go ahead and mute your microphones. Okay, and then this is the joking part. Before going off, so they're going to answer you, oh, the telescope, and then they're going to go off and listen to their Rihanna records and play with their Digimon. In English, if you put things in parentheses like this, it's kind of like you're saying something as an aside. So you're writing, and the person is reading, but then this is like another thought kind of related. So this, the idea is we don't even know what high schoolers are doing. But anyways, we're going to blow your mind. So to blow your mind means we're going to tell you something that's so amazing that you can't even believe it. And so that is, he did not invent the telescope. So that's what blows your mind. Galileo didn't do what you thought he did, and also Rihanna sucks. So it means we don't like her. She's a terrible singer, something like that. Okay, who actually invented it? All right, so now we hear the truth. Angelica. Want to read that part there? Is asshole a rude word? Yes, Angelica. The word asshole can be used just like any cuss word. You can use it for being funny. Like if you're with your friends and you're joking around and you call somebody an asshole, it's kind of a little bit rude, but it's funny. It's not really, they're not going to beat you up or get really mad. But if you're very angry and you tell somebody that they're an asshole, then yeah, it could, somebody might start a fight with you or get really upset with you. So it kind of depends on how you're using that word. Here in this context, thieving asshole, it just means like a really bad guy. It's an insult, but it's it goes along with this thieving. He was a thieving asshole. You could say like jerk would be a little bit less intense or less aggressive. Jerk or idiot or a thieving. There are lots of words to describe a bad guy. So you can use lots of words. But this is like the tone, an asshole, So this guy is using some cuss words. So that's just the tone of his way of writing. Okay, good question.
Thank you.
Angelica? Okay.
Who actually invented it? While everyone was probably looking at the stars, no one was doing it quite as hard as Dutchman Hans Lippershey. In 1608, Lippershey completed the first ever telescope and attempted to receive a patent for it, but was denied for no discernible reason. A few countries over, when Galileo heard about Lippershey's work, he quickly built his own telescope in 1609. A telescope, it should be noted, that could see just a little bit farther than Lippershey's.
Okay. So we might be used to this these days where people are stealing other people's ideas and stuff, but it was happening, or it has been happening, you could say, for a long time. So it's not anything new. So apparently this guy, this Dutchman, a Dutchman is a Dutch person from Holland or the Netherlands. So that's what we call the Dutch. So he apparently completed, so he's the first one who finished the first ever telescope, and he attempted to receive a patent for it. He tried to get a patent. A patent is a special license. So if I'm an inventor and I create something that's new, I need to get a patent to protect myself. So if I have a patent, then nobody can really steal my idea and make it to make money. But he wasn't able to do that. He was denied the patent. So they said no to him. We're not going to give you a patent, but for no discernible reason. Discernible means understandable. So nobody really knows why. It wasn't a good reason. They didn't explain to him, apparently, why. So it wasn't really a good reason. And then Galileo heard about, so he heard about it, and he decided to build his own, and his telescope could see a little bit further. So it was like a little bit different, you can say. All right. So he wasn't the one who actually created the first one. Fernando. You can read these next two. Yes.
Necessary? Not particularly. Emasculation. Oh yeah, betcha. While Galileo never registered a patent for his telescope, the fact remains that his name is synonymous with the telescope. While Lippershey was most likely absent from your old textbooks. In a final shot to show just how farly aged science was rewarded, for months surrounding Jupiter are named after Galileo. And do you know what carries Lippershey's name? A crater. A freaking crater on Earth's moons will forever be known as Lippershey's crater. The moon has cracked.
Yes. Okay, so here he is saying that, so Galileo heard about it. He basically stole his idea. He quickly built his own, and it was a little bit, maybe could see a little bit farther, so a little bit stronger maybe. So he's saying the question mark means, was this necessary? No, not particularly, not really. Emasculating? Oh, you betcha. Whenever you say you bet you, it means you bet is what it means. And it means for sure, like for sure or of course. Like you bet you. So emasculating meaning he wanted to weaken his opponent's or his competition's role. It's kind of taking away his masculinity, we say, but just making him less. So Galileo, he also never registered his patent. So you can apply for a patent, you register it, you have to be okayed, and then you get it. But he never did it either. But the fact remains. So even today, it means still. The fact remains that his name is synonymous with. So when we think of Galileo, we think of the telescope. It means like the same thing. That's what synonymous with. While Lippershey, so now this is where his tone gets a little bit indignant. So he's a little bit upset about this. This guy's name is absent from your old textbook. It means you don't even hear about him, even though he was really the one who invented the telescope. In a final shot, a final event to show just how fairly each scientist was rewarded. So this is sarcasm here. Galileo was rewarded with 4 moons being named after him, 4 moons around Jupiter. And Lippershey, he got a freaking, it was really the F word, effing crater. So whenever you use this, it's like to emphasize kind of how frustrated you are. So a freaking, or like a stupid, you could say like a stupid crater, you know what craters are on the moons. And so he says it's the moon's ass crack. So butt crack is what he's saying here. And so he's basically saying that's terrible. For the guy who really invented something, he didn't even get anything but a crater named after him. So that's not very good. So he's kind of, the tone is frustrated, indignant, upset, that kind of idea. You can call it the writing tone. Okay. Next up is number 4, Alexander Fleming. Greg?
Okay, second. Okay, Sir Alexander Fleming is the name people think of when penicillin is brought up. There is even a charming little story that goes along with it. According to the legend, Fleming's father was saved a little boy from drowning in Scotland, and the father of this boy vowed to found the young Fleming's education to repay the kindness. Eventually, Fleming graduates med school and discovers the healing nature of penicillin, which eventually saves Winston Churchill's life when he is stricken with pneumonia.
Yeah.
Stricken pneumonia, and who was the little boy that Fleming father saved in the first place? Winston Mother Churchill.
Yeah.
Weird.
Okay. All right. So it's kind of a weird story here. So Sir Alexander Fleming, he's the name that people think of when they think of penicillin. So the drug, penicillin, the medication, whenever you bring that up. So if to bring something up means to talk about it. So if you bring up the subject of penicillin, you think of Alexander Fleming. So if you talk about it, he says there's even a charming little story. So charming means sweet and nice. He's being sarcastic here, though. Oh, you even have a little story that goes along with this lie, is what it really is. Okay, so according to the legend, a legend is a story that people tell, but it's not necessarily true. His father saved a boy from drowning. Drowning is when you can't swim and you go under the water and you die because you drown. Okay, so he saved the boy, and the father of this boy, so it turns out to be Winston Churchill. So Winston Churchill's father vowed to fund. So he promised. To vow means to make a promise to fund his education, to pay for his education as a way of repaying the kindness. So because he saved his child, he said, I'm gonna pay for your son to go to school. So eventually, Fleming, the son, he actually does graduate from medical school, and he discovers the healing nature of penicillin, so that penicillin does heal, and this is what eventually saves Winston Churchill's life, penicillin, when he is stricken with. So when he comes down with, when you're stricken with something, it means you get it, you get the disease. And so he got pneumonia, and he took penicillin, saved his life. So again, that's kind of weird. So mother effing Churchill. So it's like crazy story. All right. So this would all be very cozy. Okay. So it's a nice story if it were true, but it's not. Luis. Here you go.
Okay. This will be all very cozy if it wasn't for the fact that it's totally horseshit on several counts. For one, Churchill wasn't treated with penicillin, and for another, Fleming wasn't the guy who discovered it. He was just some asshole. Who did actually discover it? Difficult to say. North African tribesmen had been using penicillin for thousands of years. Also in 1897, Ernest Dusne used the mold penicillin glaucoma to cure typhoid in guinea pigs, which okay. was about the stupidest waste of time in history of science, but proved that he understood the possibilities of penicillin in all design.
Okay. All right, so this all would be very cozy, meaning, oh, this would be a really nice story, but if it wasn't for the fact that it's total horseshit. Horseshit meaning bullshit, or it's a lie. It's not true on several accounts, or several counts. So meaning in many ways. So in many ways, this story is not true at all. So for one, Churchill wasn't treated with penicillin. That's not how he got saved. And Fleming wasn't even the guy who discovered it. Even though that's the story that people tell, it's not true. He was just some asshole. So he's calling people assholes who lie and steal people's ideas, that kind of thing. So not a very nice guy. He says it's difficult to say who discovered it. So we don't really know exactly who discovered it. We do know that some tribesmen, people in tribes in North Africa, they were already using something like, penicillin, I guess, for thousands of years. And it was this guy who was working to cure typhoid, as some kind of illness, in guinea pigs. Guinea pigs are little pets, little animals. Not everywhere are they pets. Some places they eat them too for food, but this is a guinea pig. So he was trying to cure glaucoma, which is problems with the eye. Used the mold Penicillium glaucoma. To cure typhoid. This is the name of the type of mold. Sorry. He was clearing typhoid, but in guinea pigs. And so the author of this article says that was about the stupidest waste of time. So as a scientist, he was wasting time trying to cure guinea pigs. He thought that was stupid, the author. But it is proof. It is evidence that he actually understood the possibilities of penicillin. So it's like he understood. So he, the other guy, Fleming, he wasn't the first one to discover. So that's why he's calling him an asshole and saying it's lies. Okay, Lucas. Other scientists.
Other scientists at the time didn't take him serious due to his age and strange preoccupation with guinea pigs.
Guinea pigs.
Guinea pigs. So he never received a patent for his work. He died about 10 years later from a disease that would have been completely treatable with penicillin, and he was survived by his healthy yet totally indifferent
guinea pigs.
Guinea pigs. Even when Fleming did accidentally discover penicillin years later, he didn't think it could actually be used to help anyone. So he stopped working on it and moved on. Meanwhile, a few other scientists, Howard Florey, Norman Little, Andrew Moyer, and Ernst Chain started working on penicillin and eventually mastered penicillin as well as figure out a way to mass produce it.
Okay, so basically, a lot of other people were doing similar things. So, people were always doing research and stuff. So these other guys were always working on towards that, you could say, started working on it. Okay, so other scientists didn't take him serious or didn't take him seriously, meaning they didn't really believe him because or think that what he was doing was very important, because it was strange that he was so preoccupied with. So he had a preoccupation with guinea pigs. It means that's, instead of working on people and humans, trying to help humans, he was busy working with these guinea pigs. So scientists thought it was not that important. So they didn't really take him serious. So he never received the patent, and then he died. Ironically, he died from a disease that you could treat. That's what it means, treatable with penicillin. So you could cure it with penicillin. And his guinea pigs were healthy. They survived, but they were totally indifferent. So they didn't really care about him. That's another sarcastic part of the article there. All right, so he did accidentally discover, so Fleming did accidentally discover it, but he actually didn't think it could be used to help anyone. So he didn't think it was that important. And so he stopped working on it and moved on, went on to something else. So these other guys kept working on it, and they were the ones who actually mastered it. So they're the ones who, to master something means to be an expert. So they really figured out how to use it and to mass produce it. So to make it so that a lot of people could use it, the masses, a lot, the population. So he wasn't really the one, even though we think of his name when we think of penicillin. Okay, Adrian.
So, even though Fleming wasn't the first person to discover penicillin, and even though he didn't actually believe penicillin was in any way useful, he will forever go down in history as a penicillin inventing Winston Churchill saving genius. Alexander Graham Bell. Ah, Bell, the man behind the telephone and a good guy all around. Bell spent a whole lot of time working with deaf people. His wife was deaf, his mother was deaf, and he was even Helen Keller's favorite teacher. With this time-consuming near obsession with deaf people, it's amazing that Bell found time to invent the telephone. Wait, no amazing, impossible. That's the one.
Okay, good. All right, so finishing up over here, he wasn't the first person. That's the main idea. He wasn't the first person, and he didn't even actually think it was useful, but he will forever go down in history. So the phrase here, go down in history, means people will remember him. He will be in the textbooks, as the person who, the penicillin inventing Winston Churchill saving genius. So that's how people remember him. That's how history books talk about him. The guy who wrote the article is saying it's terrible because it's not even true. So it's a lie. All right, so then he goes on to Alexander Graham Bell. Oh, okay, so this tone is very sarcastic, like, yes, Bell. Well, here's the truth about him. All right, so he was working with deaf people who couldn't hear, and his wife, his mother, and Helen Keller. She's a famous American woman who was both deaf and blind, but she learned how to communicate. It was very difficult, and so she's very well known for that, overcoming those issues, those difficulties that she had. Okay, so he's posing the question with his this time-consuming. So he had to take a lot of time to be working with these people, and near obsession. So it's almost like he was obsessed, meaning it's the only thing he wanted to do, working with deaf people. Isn't it amazing? So he's kind of saying it's amazing that he found time to invent the telephone. And this is the sarcastic part here. Wait. Not amazing, impossible. And then he says, that's the one, impossible. So it's who actually invented it. So he's saying that, this was impossible that he even had time to invent something like the telephone. All right, who actually invented it? Anatoly. Those two.
In 1860, an Italian named Antonio Meucci first demonstrated his working telephone, though he called it the teletrofono, mostly because Italians are wacky. 11 years later, still 5 years before Bell's phone came out, he filed a temporary patent on his invention. In 1874, Meucci failed to send in the $10 necessary to renew his patent because he was sick and poor and Italian. 2 years after that, Bell registered registered his telephone patent. Meucci attempted to sue, of course, by retrieving the original sketches and plans he sent to a lab at Western Union, but these records quite amazingly disappeared. Where was Bell working at this time? Why the very same Western Union lab where Meucci swore he sent his original sketches? Eventually, Meucci died penniless and faded away into obscurity.
Obscurity. Okay, so this Italian guy here, he actually was the first person who demonstrated his working telephone. Demonstrated means to show. He called it the teletrofono, and again, this is in parentheses, so it's kind of like an aside, like an extra piece of information. And he says here mostly because Italians are wacky. Wacky means silly, crazy, and he's kind of making the point that at this time in the United States, Italians were being discriminated against. So they weren't being taken seriously. People weren't listening to them. It was like discrimination. So that's what he's kind of pointing out. Like, people thought they were wacky, but of course it wasn't true. So they weren't going to let some Italian guy come up with an invention. That's kind of his point here. All right, so he filed a temporary patent on his invention. This was 5 years before Bell's phone came out, which was 11 years after he had already done it the first time. But he failed to send in. So to fail to do something means you didn't do it. So he didn't send in the necessary $10 to renew his patent, to get it, continue his patent. If you let your patent run out, then it means other people can use your ideas. Because he was sick and poor, and again, he says, and Italian. But again, that's just pointing out the discrimination against Italians at that time in U.S. history. All right, so what happened was Bell registered his telephone patent. Meucci he tried to sue him. Sue him, somebody is when you take them to court and you try to prove that they stole something or did something illegal against you. And he tried to retrieve the original sketches. To retrieve means to get them. So he sent them away, so he didn't have them. Now he tried to go get them. The sketches are the drawings, the plans that he made. But quite amazingly, this is the kind of sarcastic, quite amazingly they disappeared, so nobody could find them. And where was Bell working at this time? Why? The very same Western Union. So here the why is not a question. It's like saying, well, in fact, that's what it means. He was working at the place where Meucci swore. That means when you swear, it means you promise. That's the truth. So the idea is maybe, Bell took them. So eventually, after a while, he died penniless, meaning no money. He didn't get any money for his invention, and he faded away into obscurity. So to fade away into obscurity means nobody remembers your name, nobody remembers anything that you did. So even though he was the real person who invented the telephone, nobody remembers him for doing anything. Okay, well, let's go on to Did Bell. Amparo. Hi, Amparo.
Hi again.
Hi again. Let me hold on. Let me give you those two. Okay, so those two the whole thing there.
Okay. Did Bell, given his convenient position at Western Union, destroy Meucci's records and claim the telephone as his own invention? It's difficult to say. One source says yes, definitely. Wait a minute. While others just say probably. It makes sense. If you look at the facts, Bell already had a number of important inventions under his belt. It isn't unreasonable to assume he just got greedy and didn't want to see anyone else succeed. Further, why would Bell even need a phone? Both his wife and mother were deaf. Who the hell was he gonna call? Albert Einstein, according to all of your science books and that one episode of Animaniacs, Albert Einstein, Time magazine's Man of the Century, invented the theory of relativity. Certainly, when you hear the name Einstein, you undoubtedly will think he discovered the relativity. No, relativity.
Relativity.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or he came up with the E equal mc
Squared.
Square equation, or he was a total sex maniac. Only of those things is true. It's the sex maniac part.
Okay. All right. Finishing up with Bell here first. He was given, so it says, did Bell, given his convenient position meaning his job, and how convenient it was that he worked at the same place. So convenient mean, oh, it fits just perfectly. So it's kind of like a question. Nobody knows for sure because he says it's difficult to say what the truth is, but one source, a source is like somebody who knows what happened or thinks they know. They say yes, so you could click there. Yes, definitely. Others say probably. So it's probably true that he stole his plans and, said it was him. But he already had a number of important inventions under his belt, meaning under your belt means your experience. So you already have it as your experience. So, for example, if you're a soccer player and you say you have 15 years of soccer playing under your belt, it means that's the amount of time you've spent. So he's already had a lot of inventions that he had done, important inventions, but it isn't unreasonable to assume. So unreasonable means not reasonable. It's not unlikely to assume, to think that he got greedy. So to be greedy means you want more, and he didn't want anybody else to succeed. So he's very greedy. That's the idea. Also, this is kind of the sarcastic part. Why does he need a phone? Who the hell was he going to call? His mom is deaf, his wife is deaf. Why does he need a phone? That's the joke there. Okay, coming to Albert Einstein. People love Albert Einstein. Let's see about him. This is the joke here. If you read your science books and Animaniacs, which is a cartoon, you're going to hear about how he invented the theory of relativity. That's what he's known for. Certainly when you hear the name, you undoubtedly, that means without a doubt. So totally you think these things. He discovered relativity, he came up with E equals mc squared, or he's a total sex maniac. And he says the only one thing that's true is that the sex maniac part. So that's the only part that about these things you might hear. And this you probably don't ever hear is what he really means. So it's not something you read about in a textbook. You hear about the other things. All right, but who actually invented it? Okay, where are we? With Angelica?
Yes.
Okay, you can go ahead and read. Who actually invented it?
Henry Poincaré. Poincaré was the foremost expert on relativity in the late 19th century and was most likely the first person to formally present the theory of relativity. If you were Einstein and you wanted to write about relativity, you might consider meeting with the foremost expert on relativity, yes? If you answer yes to the question, then you're not Einstein at all. According to Einstein's famous on the electrodynamics of moving bodies, which contains his theories of relativity, Poincaré, despite publishing 30 books on over 500 papers, is not worth mentioning. It's true. Pick up Einstein's paper. If you don't believe us, you won't. Poincaré doesn't receive a single reference unless you consider plagiarism to be some kind of indirect reference. As a matter of fact, Einstein does not reference, footnote, or cite a single put-down source in his entire paper.
Good. Okay, so he's going to Henri Poincaré. So he was the foremost expert. So the foremost here means the top, the highest expert related to relativity at this time in the late 19th century. So he was the most likely person to formally present the theory of relativity. So of course, in science, a lot of people are discussing things, thinking about ideas, but the person who discovers something is supposed to be the person who formally presents it first. So apparently he was more likely the person to have done that. If you were Einstein and you wanted to write about relativity, you might consider meeting with him. Yes, so that's a question. This is the sarcastic part. He said, but if you answered yes as the reader, then you're not Einstein at all. So when people say you're no Einstein, it means you're not very smart, because we think of Einstein as being one of the smartest people who ever lived. But if you said yes, you would imagine that you're not very smart. So according to Einstein's famous, this is his work, that's the name of it, on the electrodynamics of moving bodies, which contains, so that's where he wrote about his theory. He doesn't mention anything about Poincaré, so it's not even worth mentioning. And so they're telling us it's true, even though you don't believe us. He doesn't give a single reference. So usually when you're writing a book or a paper or something like that, you have to reference your sources. Where did you hear about this? Where did you read about it? To give proof of what you're talking about. And this is the sarcastic part here. Unless you consider plagiarism. Plagiarism is when you copy somebody else's work. If you think that's some kind of indirect reference, if you copy somebody, like, that's an indirect, so not direct. And so he's saying, as a matter of fact, which just points out like even more the point, he doesn't reference footnote. Footnote is at the bottom of the page. Sometimes you'll see like a number 1, and that's where, in the text they said something and then they make a footnote at the bottom, or cite. To cite means to give a reference, to give a citation. And so he says to a single goddamn source. So meaning goddamn here is adding emphasis about how frustrating that is. So his entire paper, he doesn't say anybody, he doesn't reference any other scientists' ideas or thinking or anything, which is very unusual in science and research. Fernando.
Really? Not one source, even with side source. Albert and we're freaking cracked. What the hell? We don't want to jump to any conclusions here. Maybe Einstein's paper didn't contain any sources because they genuinely didn't read and other current psychic texts or papers. Maybe he was seriously that smart. According to Peter Gallison's Einstein's Clues, Poincaré's maps, Empire of Time, Einstein, and a small group of his fellow nerdlings formed a group called the Olympia Academic and would regularly gather to discuss their own works as well as the works of current science. The book goes on to specially mention how Poincaré was one of the science that Einstein and his battalion of nerds would discuss.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so here again, this is showing the author's outrage at this. Really, not one source. Even we cite sources. So even at cracked.com, this website here where I got this, they tell you where they get their information from. And he says, and we're friggin' cracked. So, it's just a website, and we even go to the trouble to citing references, giving people recognition for if we talk about their ideas. Friggin' here is another way you could say freaking, effing. It's just like adding emphasis to how frustrated you are. That's what it means. And so he says, what the hell? What the hell's going on? Why doesn't he cite his sources? He says, but we don't want to jump to any conclusions here. So to jump to a conclusion means you talk about the end result or the conclusion without knowing all the information. So you jump to the conclusion, to what you think is the truth. Maybe, so they're trying to give him the benefit of the doubt. Maybe his papers didn't contain any sources because he genuinely didn't read any other current. So that's highly unlikely. And so then he proves it. Yeah, maybe he was really seriously that smart. He was just so smart he came up with it all by himself without ever talking to anybody else. But the evidence is that according to this guy's book, they had a group. He says his fellow nerdlings. Nerdlings are like nerds, like scientists, guys, mathematicians. Those guys are called stereotypically like nerds. They like to come together and talk about this stuff. So they had this group, and they would regularly gather. To gather means to come together and discuss, to talk about the work, the things they were working on, as well as what other scientists of the day, the current scientists, were working on. In the book, he goes on to specifically mention, so to specifically talk about how this scientist, Poincaré, was one of the scientists that his battalion of nerds, his group of nerds, they would discuss. So it's highly unlikely that Einstein didn't know who that guy was or didn't know about his theories. Okay, so let's keep going on. Greg, the next 2 paragraphs there, starting with shoots.
Okay. Shoots. That how maybe Einstein didn't read any other papers. Theory right to shit, doesn't? It's interesting that Einstein sat studying and discussing the work of Poincaré for years, published a book that featured a theory that was startlingly similar to Poincaré's, and then didn't reference Poincaré once in the entire book. Wait, that isn't interesting. It's plagiarism. It's total bullshit. Plagiarism. Bullshit plagiarism. So good luck sexing your way out of this one, Einstein. My God.
Okay, number 1. Thomas Edison. Go ahead, you can read that paragraph too.
Okay. Thomas Edison, the Wizard of Menlo Park, described it as one of the world's most prolific inventors, with a record-breaking 1,093 patents to his name. You know, a guy could round up and kidnap a buttload of children and keep them forever. But would you call that guy the world's most prolific father? No, of course not. A soulless monster, maybe a skilled thief. If you are being generous, perhaps even the king of pop, but you wouldn't call that guy the world's most prolific father, because those aren't his kids. He stole them. Such is the case with Thomas Edison. Wow.
Very, very damning, you could say, the way he's talking. Okay, so he's saying, if you realize that these guys came together and they were talking about other scientists, and he would say, shoots that hole, and then the expression is to shoot the theory right to shit. So basically, you shoot it something to shit means you basically you prove that it's wrong. So you prove that Einstein didn't read any other paper. That theory, that idea is wrong. So you shoot it to hell, you shoot it to shit. That's an expression to just say that you totally proved it wrong. So that's the way he says it here. So he's saying, doesn't it? So don't you agree with me that would be a bunch of bullshit, is what he's saying. That's crazy to think that Einstein wouldn't know about his work. Let's see. Published a book, The Future, startlingly similar to. So startlingly, like shockingly or amazingly similar. So that's really, a bizarre coincidence. And so basically he just says, he's very upset that he didn't even reference this scientist who had already done all in the entire book. He's saying, wait, that isn't interesting? It's plagiarism. So he's basically calling Einstein a liar, that he's taking credit for other people's work. He's calling it bullshit plagiarism. And then he says, good luck sexing your way out of this one. So the idea that he referred to before about being a sex maniac. So he can't just work his way out of this one through that. Okay, and the number 1 guy, is Thomas Edison, and he's known as a prolific inventor. Prolific meaning you've done a lot. So you can be a prolific writer. It means you've written lots and lots of books. A prolific songwriter. You've written lots of songs. Whatever you've done, a lot of. So he has a record-breaking 1,093 patents to his name, meaning they're under his name. Thomas Edison invented this. All right, and so now he's becoming sarcastic here, and this whole thing here is like kind of like an analogy, like, oh, you know, so we could round up. Round up means to go gather up or kidnap a buttload of, so a ton, a lot, you know, a bunch of children, keep them forever. So this is kind of like what he did with the patents, the inventions. And then you would call the guy the most prolific father? No, of course not. You might call him a soulless monster for stealing all those kids, maybe even a skilled thief, somebody who knows how to steal things, if you're being generous. So if you're trying to be nice to Thomas Edison, you might call him just a thief. And this is a cut on Michael Jackson, or the king of pop. So talking about how Michael Jackson got his kids, that's kind of an insult to Michael Jackson there. But you wouldn't call him the world's most prolific father, because those aren't his kids. He stole them. So that's his main point here, is he didn't come up with all these things. He just stole them from everybody else. Okay, let's see. Keep going here. Luis.
Yeah, sure. Crackers instantly anti-Thomas Edison stance is already fairly well documented, but we are afraid that one article detailing what a prick this prick was just isn't enough. Edison is still celebrated in schools around the country for inventing the light bulb, the motion picture, electricity, and a shit ton of other important crap he had very little to do with. Since there literally isn't enough space on the internet to cover all of the inventions that Edison didn't invent, we are just going to focus on the light bulb today.
Okay. All right. Staunchly. Okay, if you have a staunch stance against something, so staunchly anti. So talking about their website, they're very strictly against Thomas Edison. That's their position. And he says it's fairly well documented. So they've already talked about it in other articles about how much they don't like Thomas Edison. He says we're afraid one article dealing with a prick. So a prick is another kind of word to insult somebody, an asshole, a jerk, you know, just a word that you use to talk about a person you don't like what they did, so you're frustrated with them. But he is still celebrated. So people in the United States and around the world, they still celebrate him as this person who invented all these things, including the light bulb, the motion picture, you know, movies, electricity, and again, a shit ton of means a lot, like a lot of other important crap. Crap here meaning like stuff, but in a negative kind of way. So a bunch of other things that he had very little to do with, that he didn't really even work on. So they said there's literally not enough space on the internet to cover all the things that he didn't invent. So that's the sarcasm there. But they're just going to focus on the light bulb. So who actually invented the light bulb? Okay, Lucas, you can read that. We're almost done here.
Everyone else, we all know how Edison exploited and took advantage of the poor, but brilliant Nikola Tesla. But who else did Edison sit back? Plenty of people messed around with the idea of the light bulb. Jane Foucault, Humphrey Davy,
J.W. Starr.
Some other guys you will never read about in a history textbook, but Heinrich Goebel was likely the first person to have actually invented. Back in 1854, he tried selling it to Edison, who saw no practical use in Goebbels' invention and refused. Shortly after Goebbels died, and shortly after that, Edison bought Goebbels' patent. You know, the one he saw no merit in of Goebbels' improvised widow at a cost much lower than what it was worth.
Okay, so to step on somebody just means like you're a bigger person, like you step on an ant, like you're going to kill the ant. So when people step on other people, it describes the action of like not being very fair to them, you know, hurting them in some way, you know, just not being very kind. So who did he step on? Who did he like kind of take advantage of? So there are a lot of people that were doing the light bulb, and he bought the patent off of his impoverished widow. So his widow means, you know, after he died, his wife was left alone as a widow, and she was poor. So he bought the patent, and so he screwed over a lot of other people. So screwing over, again, is kind of like taking advantage of, stepping on. I'm just going to read the last part really quickly, and then we'll be done. Screwing over just one inventor might be all right for Galileo, but Edison was a dreamer, and he couldn't be satisfied with just one dead, disgraced inventor under his belt. So, after Goebbels, and a year before Edison invented, in quotes, meaning he didn't, his light bulb, Joseph Wilson Swan developed and patented a working light bulb. When it was clear Edison's F. Swan, so like screw Swan, defense wouldn't hold up in court, he made Swan a partner, forming the Ed Swan United Company and effectively buying Swan and his patent. Soon enough, Edison acquired even more power and bought out Swan completely, leaving all records of the light bulb under the care of the Edison Company. Sure, Swan had money, but in buying all of the records, Edison could take sole credit for the light bulb. So he's got a laundry list of inventors he's either stepped on, bullied, exploited, or bought out to his name. But what do they say about Edison in the textbooks? Father of the effing light bulb. So you can tell this guy's kind of frustrated for all the lies that people continue to believe. All right, there you go.
How does the guy know everything about this?
Well, you guys can go and look at his sources, because he's been, you know, obviously reading books and things, but it's pretty true. I think it happens, you know, especially in the United States, business, cutthroat, capitalism, corporate stuff. You know, and I think Greg, you put it in the front. I think, wasn't it Einstein who said that? You know, borrowing or stealing.
No, it was Picasso, and later
Picasso, okay.
But it's funny, later it was Steve Jobs who actually said that he stole something, but actually they steal the, you know, the Windows on the computers from him. That was more funny because he said that we are a pirate in Apple and we stole the ideas, but they buying ideas, and later they, you know, Bill Gates show up and stole everything that he saw for him.
Yeah.
For me.
So yeah, I mean, you know, we kind of cut throat. So here's a picture with FU below it. But yeah, so people, you know, scientists, business people, we call that competition, and people can get pretty egotistical about it and arrogant about wanting to be the ones who have their name go down in history. So, you know, a lot of times, a lot of people are working on the same thing at once. It's not usually just one single person, but that's who gets the fame, the credit. You know.
But actually, it can be one single source that people use.
Yes, exactly. Yes. Okay, guys, I gotta go. Thanks for coming. We'll see you later. Take care.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.